I want to talk to you about my friend Charlie Crawford. He's a 10-time NFR qualifier.
Charlie Crawford, time to just shake it out and win. Got it on him fast, set
there
up.
We are.
Here's a day
nice
money
run.
lead. You betcha 3-8.
That's an absolute perfect run. Timing was perfect from the time the first swing is up. He's got the control. Charlie made it happen by being timed up with his horse with the steer, and being able to not just rope, but to pick that steer's head up without changing the momentum for the heeler at all.
We know his beautiful wife, Jackie, all three of their beautiful children, the founder of the Liberty and Loyalty Foundation, which this year will exceed $1 million raised for military and first responders. I've said it 1,000 times. Charlie, it's time to rope, nod and ride, whip and spur. I want to welcome you to the Charlie Crawford Podcast. Let's ride.
Hello, everybody. I got one of my good friends. I'm really excited about this. Got Chad Masters on, two-time world champion. Been probably one of the major jackpot winners of anybody that I know of between the George Strait, U.S. finals, won everything. Had some of the best horses of a lot of the guys that I know, and one of the best guys you'll ever meet out there in the rodeo world. Chad Masters, thanks for coming on, buddy.
You bet, buddy. We're happy to be on here.
It's been a week of it, hadn't it?
Yes, sir.
Starting on Tuesday. Tuesday was the COJO.
Yep, we started on Tuesday. We got to go up there. He put on was a great progressive round. It was early morning starting then, and we carried on to the horse show.
So Tuesday was the Cody Johnson roping, and it's his first annual. And this has been a well-needed jackpot, I've been thinking, for a long time, because what we all known back in the day was a George Strait. And he has basically kind of take over a little bit of that format. And so what was it on Tuesday? It was a little bit different than George Strait, but still kind of the same.
Right. You know, at the George Strait, we would run two. They would take, at one time back in the day, they would take the top 50. And then it turned into the deal where they would take 5 out of each rotation or 10 out of each rotation. His ended up being where they took 10 out of each rotation, and it was a 3-header. So it made it a little bit different in that aspect. And
yeah, because the George Strait used to be a 2-head, and then the top 5 out of each rotation would make it back, and those were tough.
Yes, sir.
Because there'd be some rounds where it was real tough, and then some rounds were a little bit lighter, where the 3-head average was probably a little bit softer than a 2-head.
Yes, sir. I think I didn't keep up with it completely, but I think a 21 made it back every time. There was a couple of them that maybe a barrier made it back here and there, but it was a deal where you could kind of just go make some runs on the cow you drew. You weren't pressing. You weren't having to make something happen that day. And then going.
Steers looked pretty good setup.
Very good setup. Nice.
I think
building.
that roping takes off after this.
Yes, sir.
Everyone. Especially when people, I think, realize, too, is because it always seems different in the open roping, where I think everyone knows when you have 3 chances, Driggers has 3 chances, Dustin Squig has 3 chances, it's going to be tough. It's going to be real tough. But this is different in the fact of you're basically just trying to make it back.
Right.
And so what you're saying is a 6-7 second average run will make it back to give you a chance. To me, that lets a lot of guys know, okay, heck, I can go do that.
Yeah, I didn't do anything special. I ended up making it back all 3 times. With the holes that he's paying, you know, and the money that he's got, that he's helping us get, it's something where you could even, you know, now that it's over, the way that it ended up being, 6 and 7 second runs would have placed the whole way through.
Mm-hmm. And then Wednesday morning, 7 a.m., Fort Worth, how many head horses did you have that you were riding Wednesday?
I rode 3 of my own, and I rode another outside horse that Caleb Anderson's had. Very nice horse, but I got to show 4 of them.
Now, what happened? You end up riding, you helping Caleb out. What ended up happening to Caleb, and how's he doing?
Caleb, you know, he's doing better now, but he had a bad accident and broke his leg coming out of the hill box. I know we've all hit our leg and think we've broke it when a horse comes out and runs your leg down the wall. They made it sound to me like the steer wanted to go right anyhow, and the horse just read the steer coming right, and just with the heel box, got his leg, and
horse just moved a little early, didn't quite clear, and got him.
And he did break his, and they said it sounded like a shotgun going off.
Yeah, I think tibia, fibia, if I remembered right, and maybe is there some rods in there now?
I think and then he's having a little bit of ankle trouble with it going too. So it's going to be a little bit before he's back rolling.
And I hated that for him. I mean, you never want to see that happen anyway. But I got to see some of his horses at Fort Worth over the 4th of July at the Futurity, and they looked really good.
Yeah, he's
getting it down.
Yep, I know he goes and ropes with Cade Rice a lot, and they're at the top of the game of their showing, and Caleb's worked at it all year, and I hate he didn't get to go showcase what he's done.
Well, you've done a good job. Your horses have always been good, from Wart to Cody to Stranger, Clint, and then what was the other one that?
I had an older horse named Lucky.
Lucky.
He was just
that was probably the easiest horse I've ever rode, and I've rode all of those. But Lucky was probably the easiest one out of any of the horses I've ever rode before.
I think he was just, I think his name fit him. I don't know when he got the name Lucky, but he always seemed like the horse that needed to be faster, needed to pull more. But when it was all said and done, I'd love to have him again.
He could win.
Yeah. He could just win at the right time.
I've got to ride your horses and Trevor's horses before in the past, and your two horses. You and Trevor's horses were the easiest for me to step on because it was clear. They would go when your hand went forward. They would go to the spot. They would go after you'd throw. They would go where you asked them to go, and there was no tricks. They were just so easy. And I thought your horses looked so good Wednesday. Because how many did all three of yours make it back to the short round?
There's a very good friend of mine that works for me, Mitchell Bazell. It was his horse that he owns that I rode as well, and it is super, super easy. And then 2 of mine made it back to the short round. I was super proud of them. They all did good. I thought, like you said, they were easy in the box. They were easy, friendly, user friendly. There was a lot of things that I learned from the show and stuff that I can move forward and work on that I need to sharpen up with them or with my, the horses coming up.
Well, you make me want to whip my own ass. I don't know how many more times than not, because I'll spend 2 years on a horse and I'm actually home during the week. And when you show up after rodeo in full time and you've got 3 of these horses, and I'm like, well, how do you even ride them? You got a 4-year-old that looked freaking awesome. I've been 2 years deep in the one I ride. Didn't even come close making short round. The second one kind of got me down. But it's like, what the heck am I doing with my time? Like, you're off rodeoing and your horses come back and they look so good. And I'm like, this is not fair. I don't know. Like, what the heck are you doing? How do you have them to where when you get done rodeoing, them suckers are ready?
No, I don't know. I think they're just couple good-minded horses. And
I just want to take a tail of my rope with my own self over the head. I'm like, gosh dang, Chuck, figure it out. Like, Chad's got it down. Like, what the heck? Like, I understand Trevor. Like, that's all he does, right? But you got all these irons in the fire, rodeoing all year long, and then come back, and then your horses just look amazing.
It's like blind luck. You just don't know. I don't know what I'm getting into, and it just works out.
Well, they look good, man. Your horsemanship has always been right there with the top, and they looked really good. What do you feel like you've learned? So I found out this year kind of what I had learned a little bit on my training technique that needs to change was Jackie was actually helping me with it. She actually got on my horses on Tuesday before I went up there. And I said, look, no one's ever been on him, and just run a couple. Let me see what it looks like. I just need some eyes to see what he looks like, see if I need to change things. I'd love to know what she felt. And first one looked terrible. Like she roped, lost her rope, split the horns, and he stepped out. And she gave me that look, and she's such a sweet girl. She gave me that look, but she didn't say it. But it was like, that look in her eye was like, is it too late to draw out? Like, if I was you, I'd probably draw out. Like, what have you been doing the last 2 years on this horse? Like, this is terrible.
When's the deadline?
But luckily she didn't say it, but you could see it. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that was bad. That was so ugly. Well, then the next one, he kind of got a little more of a feel, and the next one, and then finally everything kind of lined out. But like either way, I went to the Futurity that morning, and I went and got a 6-pack of beer and a cup of coffee, because at 9:30, I didn't know which way I was going, right? And so what I tell you what was great about it, though, was when we were talking is like, I went to Joseph's the day before, and he was helping me with, like, when I would pull my slack, basically my left hand to kind of stay in front of the saddle horn on the horse's main line, and to be able to kind of stay centered. That way I kind of kept the saddle horn centered to where then you could ride your horse across the pin and set up your corner. Well, when I was telling her that, she picked up on something, and And I always get on guys like at the clinics, like the whole stick and cross. That was how I was started. I totally get it. Well, then the problem with the stick and cross is where you end up pushing all the weight on the horse in the corner. And they get to leaning on it. They get dropping the shoulder. They get to moving the saddle horn. Well, when I was telling her, like when I was pulling my slack, getting back to the center line, I didn't realize my hips were shifting left as I was doing it. Same thing I give somebody heck about at a clinic.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
And she's like, well, there you go, right there. Like, look at what your hips doing. And of course, me being a smart ass, I was like, I guess I ain't paid attention to my hips since Journey was born. So I guess I better start paying attention what them things are doing, you know. And of course, she was like, "This is why I don't help you."
This is exactly why I haven't been on this horse yet.
Yeah, exactly. Like no wonder he didn't. But it was like, oh my gosh! And then she would show me like when she would pull her slack, where she would open her hips up to the left, and then it would let the horse step to the left and still stay uncentered, and then you could get that leg under, and then you're at the right angle. Where I was staying too much there, and that horse was almost hipping out just a touch. Well, then it was hard to control the steer's head from there, and it was the smallest little detail. But the next day, when I roped and just got to the left and opened them hips up, I could feel them stay under me. I could feel where it was relaxed for him, it was easy for him, and I was like, if I could have had that 20 years ago.
Oh yeah, yeah. If
you know what I mean?
Started, yeah.
You imagine how good Patron could have worked. Like,
oh, man.
Give me go down the line a list of like all the horses that we've had back in the day. Like, it's amazing. What this is to me was fun about the fraternities is like those little things that you learn where you can apply it to the next one. And
that's right. And I think you're right. It's just something, you know, that small that could definitely show them 10 times better.
What did you feel like you got after this fraternity?
Well, just like you said, I feel like I was trying to ride too much. You know, the first round. Maybe been gone rodeo and riding rodeo horses. You're used to, as soon as you had them, something happening right then, you're trying to cross up, and then when nothing does happen, then you're hustling them before they're ready. So I had to chill out after the first round, and I think I was using my reins, my feet. I had them going every direction except for letting them be kind of who they are. So
that was another thing I'd learned too, was when she was getting on them, she was telling me like they're not really thinking. They're just kind of, I was almost micromanaging them too much. And then that was another thing when I had the podcast with Andy Holcomb, and he was talking about them horses hooking up. Like right as soon as they would leave the box, like they would find the steer. And he was talking about driggers when he was first helping driggers, like he said, they would just run. And as opposed to walking up, and like it was funny when I did that podcast with Andy, and then when Jackie got on him, it's kind of the same thing. She's like, you're almost having to ride them to him instead of him finding them,
right?
To where they start learning to think on their own a little bit and understand their job.
Yeah. And then, like you said, by the end of the show, I think I had no wow to it. I was trying to be so calm and so not override them that they were waiting on me for their next move. Like, okay, where do we go now? And I think I need to set down quite a bit more and help them set themselves up too.
Yeah. When then Thursday, then how many guys did you help on Thursday?
I helped 10. That was nice. I've helped a lot before.
Because you've helped before where you probably don't even remember how many you've helped.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. And I and that's a great thing, and it's fun because you get to run a lot of steers and you're busy, but I've caught myself, I think one year I helped 36 horses, and I had got so tired that evening I would forget my numbers. I would be going to the steer thinking about where I'm going to throw at, and I would maybe already even headed the steer. Like just be exhausted. Yeah. So it's a full day.
Because how many steers did Paul rope on Wednesday?
Oh man,
Paul leaves. He helped, I think, 27 guys.
Exactly. I knew he told me to run 84.
84.
And every time you looked around, he was heeling a steer.
Mm-hmm.
Every time. I mean, it just looked like he was helping everyone. And
what was his stats? I think someone.
He told me that he had missed one maybe and roped 2 legs or 3 legs and
87 runs.
87 runs. And what was so impressive about it was they had ran some bigger steers that run. They had run some smaller ones that was fast handling, and at the end they put in some softer steers, and man, he just adapted every situation they had. He was ready for it.
You think of the guys that get reps to where it's, you think about Paul Leaves, you think about Clay Cooper, like what could a steer possibly do that they ain't seen?
Yeah.
And that's how. because they've gotten so many reps on so many different kind of steers, they can almost read the steer before the steer does what he's going to do. That's
they're ahead of it, and they're mind strong too.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So then I wonder how many Driggers probably helped. Driggers, Thursday was helping a bunch and healing at the same time.
Yeah, and healing amazing. He said that was what woke him back up. He's excited. He didn't have to think. He just got to heal.
Yeah. And so Thursday, because you guys, it was early mornings, long days, all day long.
Yeah, that was good for me. I was it's good for a rodeo guy to get into the horse show world as far as that, and realize that waking up at 4 a.m. and going back to bed at 10 or 11, and when you already get there and you think you're on your horse early, these guys have already been up loping all night. I pull in the barn, get there, go into the building at 6, and their horses already broke a sweat, and that's the third one they've been on.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's all in. And then Friday was the short round, and then you had a 4-year-old too as well, didn't you?
Yep. I got to show my 4-year-old at 1 o'clock. The horse had done great. Dadgum, I let him down. Ended up hickeying a horn on the last one. Came back 6 high call. Hickeyed a horn. The rope ended up coming all the way off. It went from a hickey to a Honda over the horn to all the way off. But ended up making the short round on him as well. And he stayed put together good. And I was really pleased with him.
Yeah, they did really good. Like I said, I watched the short round up there, and just it looked like another breed of Cody. It looked like another breed of the same horses that you rodeoed on before. Just so confident in the box and relaxed, and just looked like anyone could have got on them, which is impressive. That's not easy to do, and you do such a good job with that.
Well, one thing that does help that part of it is I haven't rode them at open ropings. I hadn't gutted them a ton of times and asked them for their life a lot, but we got a group of kids here that work for me, and they keep them busy during the summer. They keep them busy. We heel on them a lot and use them a lot, and lets their minds, lets them down.
How do you keep them rode then when you're off out rodeoing?
I think I got 3 kids here with me, and they do a great job, and they keep them rode. And my dad's here, and he'll go trail ride them. If anything's just being real hot or something that you find yourself wanting to pick on, you'll look around and Bob will be gone trail riding it, and he'll come back 3 hours later. And
let him go move.
Let him go move and keep him with a job.
How about that horse of Trevor's, that 4-year-old?
Man, it, and then, like you said, it's something to see that he can keep coming up, and that him and Miles do such a great job of every horse they ride is the best 4-year-old you've ever seen, and then they come up with a better one, and then they come up with another one. And I've rode some horses that they've sold, and they are as solid of 6 and 7-year-olds as you've ever rode.
Well, I thought, you would probably understand this one because you probably remember it. But when I first seen Trevor ride that 4-year-old, I think it was this spring, or maybe it was this summer at Fort Worth, and as a 4-year-old, and I thought it was Banker. Remember Banker,
Yeah.
The one that he ended his career on, that he won the BFI on? That sucker could run, but he looked like him, like just a big, beautiful sorrel horse. And I think it's Gunner's Affair. R&R Gunner's Affair was the name of the horse that he rode as a 4-year-old. And that sucker in the box.
Oh, it was. I watched the short round. Perfection.
In the 4-year-old class and the open, he won both.
Yep.
And it's crazy because 2 4-year-olds won the whole thing. Joseph's 4-year-old and Trevor's 4-year-old. 4-year-old beat the whole class. And I'm telling you, that horse scored a 4 in the box on both judges because he never moved.
He never moved. He knew they were going to run the cow. He wasn't scared. He wasn't green. He just was. He was dead on.
It was wild, huh? It was like I said. It was so fun to watch. And then Joe's horse, he ended up getting, I think, a 240 in the 3rd round, which I think that might be like the highest score.
I was wondering that. I've never heard of that. I think that's.
And that was a one-night special that Joey was riding, 4-year-old. Yeah, just some amazing class of horses. It was awesome. Yeah, it was to me, for a 4-year-old to beat horses that have been at it for 2 extra years. That's hard to do.
Oh, it's hard to do. That's unreal.
That's to me where the training now with these guys they're getting so good at it.
Oh, these horses are so broke, and they know what buttons they're asking for them as a 3-year-old, and they know when to mash on them and when to let off.
And the breeding's starting to get there too, where I think because that, like I say, that one of Trevor's looks like a head horse.
Well, yeah, and then the one Joseph's riding. I mean, he's a tank. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a 4-year-old. He looks like a heel horse. He's huge.
Yeah, it was fun to watch. What a good show Jay put on. I just hope it continues to keep getting bigger and better every year because they do such a good job with that production. It's right there in Fort Worth. It's during the reining deal, and it's such a good thing to watch. I know that I would think the sponsors would just keep coming where that thing's just going to keep getting bigger and pay bigger every year.
Man, it's fun to watch that short round. There's a lot of energy in there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so then the next morning, you wake up. Now we're up to Saturday morning, right? So What time did you guys left yesterday? What time did you guys leave yesterday?
We went ahead and left at 5:30. Went down there. Cody had a heck of a pro-am roping. Man, lots of sponsors there roping. It was huge. The stands were full all day. So it's gonna really resemble the straight because he is right now the biggest country singer in the world. He's a team roper. He's a rancher. He's a true cowboy. And I'm so glad that he's getting involved with it because as much as he loves team roping, this fits right down his wellhouse. Oh, it was first class, like you'd imagine. I mean, from where the shoot help he had, no one was not paying attention.
Yeah, Corky Allman and Darren Peterson, they did a great job. I tell you, Teton Ridge did an amazing job because watching it, like me and my buddy Shana, we watched it last night. And just the graphics, the signage looked great, the marketing looked great, but the film was amazing. It was so clear. It was so fun to watch.
Well, I don't even know what you call this thing, but not in my history have I been to somewhere where you ride under the camera that's got an arm on it at a jackpot. That kind
of like the NFL then.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
What you expect. I mean, if there's anyone capable of having that kind of
take
stuff,
it to the next level.
Yep, it was good filming.
And so then the short round came. That was the top 60. And so a lot of these guys have been roping, like we talked about. They've been up since 4. They go to bed at 10 or midnight and have been running them. And I remember somebody was telling me last year that Driggers didn't help as much because it kind of affects his roping a little bit. Because it's a different swing when you're running close than when you're running and gunning, from 2 to 3 coals back. And so to watch some of the guys that come in the short round, some of them looked exhausted. I seen Paul on Friday, and he looked exhausted.
Well, I don't know about them, which they should have been. They run 4 times the steers that I ran. But when I got home at 10:30 on a Friday night or 11, I had a decision to make whether I needed to rest until 5:30 or saddle up my rope horses and try to run some before the next day. I should have saddled up and roped some because I chose to sleep. And I don't know that I was quite prepared, but it's a completely different for myself. You go, you're kind of roping right horn, left horn all week, and then you're supposed to show up and be able to beat these guys going 4. The next day, what you're getting into the next day.
Well, so the short round came around yesterday, the top 20. So this is where the COJO is a little bit different than the straight. It used to be in the third round, all the teams roped and went into the round, which was kind of ugly watching after a while. I mean, it'd be great every once in a while when they'd hit the red wrap steer and they'd blow the, throw a 3 on them, win the round. It's kind of cool. But, I mean, you would go through miss after miss after miss. I do like the top 20. It cleans it up.
Yes, sir. Yep. And that was, and it wasn't just such a long day. Once you get through the second round, it's going to be an exciting short round, and definitely cleaned a lot up.
But that short round didn't go in the direction I really thought it was going to go.
Yeah, I was on the way home, and I'm pretty sick. I'm sure there's other sick ropers as well.
There's a lot of sick ropers.
I would think so. I would think that not just myself is sick, and you want to go win. I mean, he's got trucks and trailers. You're hoping that that's your day. But even if it's not your day, you're still roping for a living. There's still opportunity to win, 6th, 7th, 8th place and make plenty of money. And a lot of us, only one person's going to win the truck and trailer. And a lot of us left a lot of money there, including myself. So,
well, for the guys that didn't see the short round, I think a barrier started it off, if I remembered right, and then a miss, and then another miss, and some misses, and some misses, and then another barrier, and some more barriers, and to where, I mean, I think Shane Phillip came from, was it 12th high call?
12th high call and 1 second.
In 1 second.
Yeah.
I mean, you watch Clay Smith, Ironman, doesn't mess up, break a barrier. You watch Driggers, don't mess up, steer slips in the corner. You see Thorpe, does not mess up.
No.
You just keep the steer in the arena for both of them.
Yeah, exactly.
And get a leg. Second, I mean, it was wild.
I was thinking.
I thought everyone looked exhausted.
Immediately, I'm like, well, that short round, that don't ever happen.
No.
And then you're like, well, that's like, never happens. And
not this day and age was it much as everyone, as good as everyone ropes.
No. And
but it
looked
was to me like a lot of guys were exhausted.
Yeah, that could have been
or
it.
if I don't know if it just, there's sometimes you watch team roping and like just catching gets in your head. Right. And you watch enough bad and then almost like it's infectious. But I don't know what the vibe in the room or you were there. But
yeah, I was there. I had 2 calls. I was 19th and 17th, which you think you don't have a prayer to get to the top 8. I missed both mine. I drew 2 of the best steers I could have drawn, missed them both. You don't really sweat it until you ride back around and you realize that no one's caught and everyone else has broke out. And then the 12th high call goes and then they still keep messing up. And you're like, boy, I made a bad decision. I should have just turned my cows and seen what happened. And then, like you said, I don't know because it's very easily, you're talking about the top ropers in the world that's capable of winning the roping. So they're stuck in between. Do I just go catch and win second or third? But if I can blast this one, I get a truck and trailer.
That's where I think a lot of it was going. I agree.
Yeah.
T-Wade.
Yeah.
T-Wade's going to try to win a truck.
Yeah, it's just as
Driggers
easy.
And they're going to try to win the truck.
That's right. That's what I love about them guys. They're animals.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting here.
They're assassins.
I'm whipping
they're going for the kill.
They're going for the kill. I'm upset that I didn't win, 10 or 12,000 that I missed for. And they're not worried about that money. They're worried about the fact
they wanted that truck.
They wanted the truck.
And reasonable because they were gorgeous. The Bloomer trailers, Bill Fick did an amazing job on the trucks. COJO and them, like it was such great graphics on them. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah, we don't get to rope for that, and I'm so excited that he's
bringing it back
because I feel so sorry for the kids that didn't get to go to the George Strait and I mean the talent that's coming up now. That Tyler Trine makes it back 3 times. He didn't get to rope for a truck and trailer at the George Strait. Now he gets to go here.
Yep, I agree. That's a good tradition to bring back. So Andrew Ward, Jake Long, 4.8, and then just had to basically just go catch one in the 3rd round to win it. But this Andrew Ward is a machine, isn't he?
He's a machine.
He is a machine. The Governor's Cup, to get his partner in, turns all 4 steers the same way. Like no pressure. And that's a pressure spot to get your partner in. And he just looked like an animal. And for that horse to stay up in the corner all year long is a extremely hard thing to do. And that guy knows how to do it.
Yeah.
He gets longevity out of his horses, doesn't he?
Yes, sir. He's rode that horse for a long time. He's got a couple other ones that he's been riding for 2 or 3 years now. And the same thing. He knows his game and he sticks with it.
So you've won the George Strait before. So when you say Jake Long, and this is, I think Jake's probably won it before. I think he won it with Coleman, maybe like.
Yep.
But this is Andrew's first time.
Right.
He didn't get a chance to do, at the George Strait to get one done. So he got one done. What do you think he does with that truck and trailer? Because I know what I would do. But what do you think? What would you do? What do you think Andy does with that truck and trailer?
I don't have a clue what he will do. At the time I kept my truck and then I ended up, selling my trailer a couple years later. But the satisfaction or gratification you can get of when you think you're having bad days or the fact that how blessed you were that day you won that. Like that's life changing to win that much at one day. And, it sure makes you look upstairs and thank him for the day that you did have. And I personally wish I would have kept the trailer for that purpose. I'm gonna put some miles on that truck too.
Yeah, that would be the 2 things that would never sell. I would have to have that right there because that's a heck of an achievement. But also too, as I understand, the guys too are making a living. You got to make a living, so I mean that was an asset right there to be able to keep going. So,
yeah, it works both ways.
So, yeah, they were gorgeous, man, and so is there any new teams that you know of going forward for next year?
Boy,
those two rope good together.
Yeah, I think that maybe I heard they were maybe going to rope, but I don't know any other teams happening.
I'd heard a few of them, but I'm going to kind of wait around a little bit to see if it kind of irons out. But there was some great roping going on there. Great payouts. What was it? Was it $60,000 to win it? Is that what I heard?
Oh man, I did not know that.
Truck and trailers. I think $30,000 a man, maybe.
Man, that's huge.
It's a great roping. So you came from Adams, Tennessee, correct?
Yes.
And I drove through there the other day. I did a clinic up there and drove through Adams. I think I was up there in Kentucky, and I drove back down to the airport and drove through Adams. And I remember calling you. And so Tennessee is probably one of my favorite places. It's probably, if no one's ever been to Tennessee, it's probably the nicest group of people that I've ever been around in my life. And I've learned a lot of that because, you know, we've hung out a lot together. We've rodeoed together. We've lived together. And you know, the guys that you could bring over from Tennessee. And I remember kept saying, man, I want to go to Tennessee. Well, since I've retired, I've got to go do clinics over there. And it's truly some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. And so that is such there's so much humility there and such a humbleness of people. And I really, it's one of my favorite places to go. So what was Adams, Tennessee like growing up for you? Team roping, you know, because I think, in my opinion, for a lot of the guys roping back east, this has to be a great podcast because you came from the east and made it. You were a 2-time world champion, one of the best headers growing up. You know, there's a certain blueprint that you and Luke, Driggers, and a lot of guys have to come from the east and make it and be successful. Because I know a lot of guys back there dream of, you know, being able to do the things that you've done. And so growing up in Adams, what was it like, and how did you get to where you're at now?
There was, you know, my dad. He was a calf roper. A lot of calf roping. There was team roping as well, but we weren't around much team roping until was a guy named Harold Travis, and he had worked for Bobby Hurley and his family, and he came into Nashville, and he's the one that got us all involved in team roping when I was probably, I bet I was 9 or 10 years old. So up until then, I'd rope breakaway calves, and my dad had IPRA rodeoed as a calf roper, and then, but anyhow, we start team roping, and man, we're all in. We're getting bigger horses and just pretty much starting from scratch.
And then you guys rode a lot of horses too.
Yes. Yep. My dad worked at Pepsi for 30 years, and then when he retired, he went to riding outside horses. And I was probably about 14 or 15 when we started riding outside horses. And that's huge that you don't even realize. You're learning a feel for how to make a horse that, you know, maybe the greenest horse in the world, but you're learning buttons that you don't even know you're learning at an early age. And then I went in high school rodeoed. They took me to Clay O'Brien Cooper roping school when I think I was 11 or 12. And then high school rodeoed. And I started IPRA rodeoing when I was about 18, 19.
Because you grew up roping calves too. Your dad roped calves.
Yep.
And then you rope calves pretty good as well.
Well, he wanted me to rope calves, and I wished that he kept telling me all the time, son, you're going to wish one day you tried harder because you have an opportunity to rope more, and the one thing you can do is you can rope their necks. You are terrible at flanking and tying, but anyone can learn to flank and tie if they'll just do it. But every time he left me alone at home, I was either heading or heeling a dummy. And
the passion was team roping.
The passion was team roping, and then he was right. Well, I was about 28. I tried to come back, and I don't know that it's too late, but you'd have had to quit team roping to get any better. So.
And then, high school rodeo, you had one of my favorite high school stories of you was, I think, at the high school finals, wasn't it?
You're going to bring that up?
Yes, absolutely. It's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite stories.
Boy. Okay. So
I just want everyone to know you're one of the humblest, nicest guys in the world. But what a lot of people don't know is you're one of the greatest storytellers. Like Buck Campbell can tell a story. But like you tell the best sober stories of anybody I know. And this one was one of my favorites.
I wish I wasn't sober. was at the moment. But so I
what year was it? Was it your
this is
year?
probably 96. So I'm 14.
14.
I'm 14. Made it to the high school finals.
And where was it at?
It's in Pueblo.
Pueblo.
We're in Pueblo. We get there. There's some trouble with the rooms. Like we don't have a room like we had. They got us checking in 2 days later. So we're staying in the nose of our horse trailer, and then we go to the showers, and then we get to the showers, and I realize that this is there's showers everywhere, and they're all open. And I never played any sports, never cared to watch sports. I don't know how you handle stuff like this. I just know that when I'm in this room before I go out to these showers, I'm really struggling on if you go to the shower with your shorts on that I don't have. So am I going to go out here with my underwear on, or am I? You've only seen these movies, and sometimes the guys don't have their clothes on because they're big tough men. I don't know. So I choose. Why I didn't just go peek and see if the other people had shorts on or not? I said, hey, man up.
We're gonna be a man.
We're gonna be a man.
We're gonna be a man.
I go out there. I'm the only person showering with nothing on.
Everyone else, we got their underwear on.
And at this time, I'm not. What I weigh now? 170. 14-year-old me weighs 130, maybe, out there showering.
And I remember he said, well, here we are. I'm just going to keep a smile on my face, pretend like I know what I'm doing.
You can't run around. You can't turn around now. I took the fastest shower I ever took.
To me, that summed you up. It's like, all right, this is a decision I made, so here we go.
Here we go. We're
going to do it.
Yeah, you done it. Yep,
setting your presence known. Everyone knows now who Chad Masters is at 14. I'm going to be around a long time, so I want you guys to know.
That is what you do. I'm here.
I'm here. Oh, I love it. And so then after high school, that's kind of when everyone back east, they start going IRAs.
Yes, sir.
Back east, correct?
Yes, sir. That's a big deal. It was, it's something a goal that you make to make. So, it was me and Kevin Daniel, Sam Smith, a good buddy of mine I'd met when I was probably 10 or 11. I might have been 11 or 12. I got a Bob Hurley horse from, a man named Gene Black. That was my first team roping horse. And, he had a big knee, and every kid in the world had been through him in Alabama. And I think I rode him for 3 or 4 years, and man, he was just a superstar of a horse. But anyhow, and then we took Booger Britnell with us. His name's Stephen Britnell. He's won the world in IPRA more than anyone, I think. But that first year rodeoing is the funnest year that I've ever had. You can't top it. You can't relive it.
Everything's fun.
Anything's fun. Yeah. Everything was fun.
You're free. Like, this was freedom.
Yeah.
I remember that when I was a kid, like me and Jason Stewart and the Campbells, we all rodeoed. And yeah, you're free. No one's telling you what to do. You're going to see everything.
Oh, so, my dad, Bob, he's IPRA rodeoed. He's done it before, so he's going to enter us. So our goal is just to make the IFR. And I think the guys that made it, me and Kevin went in. I think Kevin went in first. I went in second. And Kevin might have went to 80 or 90. I went to 120. And I think the guys went in third and fourth who went to 40 rodeos. So we had the time of our life. Fuel's $1.10 a gallon. All the money we need is just for entry fee money. You don't own anything. We had one trailer and an extended cab truck. 3 of us slept in the nose and somebody slept in the back seat. We switched that up.
Now, Kevin was telling me about one of your guys' trailers that you had to move stuff to get the shower.
That's right. That was I had a 4-horse trailer with maybe whatever the short wall was on it, a shower fit. So we had put a shower in it, and it didn't have mangers, and it had a small back tack. So we would put horse blankets, rope bags, clothes bags in the shower, and when we got to the rodeo, we'd move them all out like we were camping. We'd all get showered up, get cleaned up for the night. And, but it was, at that time, you don't know no better, so it's fine. It would be miserable now.
It was, yeah. Back then, it was just so much fun. Everything was fun.
Yeah.
The fact that it was yours, the fact that you were going where you wanted, doing what you wanted.
And then, those of you that don't know my dad, from the time I was little, when you pulled up to the gas station, he gave you $30. And that's to get diesel, him a drink, and yourself a drink. And you better be back in the truck before he was done pumping the fuel. So when he finally turns me loose, I stay in the store 10 minutes, 20 minutes. I stay in there walking around forever. And he would call and check on us through the night to see where we were. So we had learned to tell him, we would jack with him and tell him that we were 100 miles farther than we could even drive it. And he'd be like, I figured y'all was about there. That's how fast he wanted us to travel. But
that's funny. Yeah, it was, I remember my dad, and that was an era back then. Everything was, after a certain time, you left. And a lot of people weren't scared to leave you back then, too.
No, that's right.
I remember Cross. I would rodeo with Cross, and you stayed pretty sharp after the rodeo because he was not scared to leave.
Yeah, it's somewhere to be.
Yep,
that's right.
Yeah, it's time to go. So you and Kevin, you guys rodeoed quite a bit back in the day, also, and like you guys would get in kind of a bucket rustle every once in a while.
Oh man,
what was the nickname? Redbird.
Oh man,
is that the one he gave you?
I don't remember. Maybe Big Red, maybe Red. I don't know. But Kevin, I ended up heeling for him in high school rodeo one year, and I probably met him when he was about 15, and he truly did have the same head loop at a 15-year-old, the same swing, throw at the back of their head, cut their head off at that age as he does now. Still, he
had some sauce on that.
He did. He was strong at that age, and he still throws it the same. But anyhow, he roped amazing at a young age. But that was the time of our life. And sure, when you're cramped up with everybody, eventually everybody's going to get a little
somebody's winning,
heated.
Someone's losing, everyone's losing.
Somebody's going to get heated at some moment. But I ended up throwing some buckets at him. Is what you're getting to. With the buckets. See, I knew I was too small to even have a chance with him, and I was sick of him at the moment. So I had 9 buckets, and I'd stacked them, and I catch him right around the corner about chest level with him. And I'm pretty sure the look he gave me, he was going to kill me, but none of the healers let him get to me, thank goodness. And we rodeoed for a week in the rig, and then we had not spoke. And then finally, just one night, it was over. It was over, and I think we both rode the same horse that night. That's how it went.
Well, when me and Joseph roped together, I remember he was going through a leg session, and I remember he got mad, and he kicked a bucket. Well, it was just, and it wasn't intended to me. It was an accident. You know how Joseph, every once in a while, I call it the putter throw. You know, in Happy Gilmore, well, here comes the putter throw. Because the amount of times he would hit me in the head on accident with his tail of his rope, because he'd rope a leg and then just fling it, and then I'd take one to the head right there. So when I'd rope and the leg comes, like, watch out for the putter throw. You know, we'd always laugh. Well, I think we were at Coeur d'Alene, and he got mad, roped another leg. Well, he just kicked the bucket, and it was right about the time I walked around, and I take, and the bucket like, what? And then so I'm like, oh. Well, Joe said he kicked it, and he looked down. And he was just mad. He had no idea that it got me. And said all of a sudden, then a bucket went right by my head, and it was like, oh crap! And he's like, no, wait a minute, I didn't know. We had a small little bucket session ourselves.
Well, I apologize if y'all have already covered this, but my favorite you and couple Joseph stories is anyone that knows Joseph knows that, he's took good care of his horses. He takes good care of his equipment. He's not going to tie his horse up with his bridle. He's not. If you've been around Joseph, you've held his horse. You've held his horse at some point, and you gave him how many minutes did you give him one time?
At Tucson, I told him
5 minutes.
Yeah, it was kind of like your dad.
It's like, hey, you
need to hurry up because this annoying son of a gun's brocked over my hat. He's chewed up my rope. He's cinched my horse.
It's an amazing hill horse, whatever he's riding, but it's so probably been in a stall its whole life.
Yep.
So it's busy. It's busy, and he's probably hungry. But anyhow, I know he notices that it's running loose on the track, wherever it was that you did turn it loose.
We got along like brothers. That's for definitely sure. It was a lot like when you talked about with Kevin. It was so funny. But one of the guys that I always thought, like, in my opinion, that reminded me of brothers was you and Luke. You guys came from the same spot. You guys IRA rodeoed a little bit together as well, too, didn't you?
Yep, that was the same year. He was a little older than me. Man, when he showed up, you knew it was fixing to, you're roping against Kevin and him, and you knew it was going to be for real. So
I don't think anyone with more love of the game than Luke Brown.
No, I think you can mean that too. I
talked to him this morning to get some funny stories on you, and he was already saddling them up.
Yeah.
He said, you don't let go of that steer like I did last night without roping any today.
No, he called me last night, wanted to know if I wanted rope when I got home.
I believe it.
Because he didn't have lights. So he thought that we were, just in case I'd pinned him, he was on his way over.
That guy is work ethic and your work ethic. Your guys have a little bit different work ethic. Yours is there, but Luke's work ethic is the amount of like runs he can get in that time is like no one I've ever seen.
Oh, no. I've. You're right. You're exactly right. And
you're there from 4 a.m. I've seen before till midnight.
Well,
but like he can do it within a couple hours.
When him and Jake Long roped, they could run a set of 60 steers in 2 hours or less. Mm-hmm. I've seen him run a set of 30 in 20 minutes, and his horses are in shape for it.
Yeah,
But he team ropes.
Loves it.
He loves it.
He had to have loved it just as much back then too, huh?
Oh, I think
when
he
you guys
did.
were IRA rodeo.
Yeah, he's come a long ways.
Yeah. So when you went through the IPRAs, I mean, that's a pretty cool. Like for me, when I was NPRA rodeo and where I came from and circuit rodeo, and like I kind of had a similar deal. Jason Stewart, I was in the rig with him a lot. He had made the NFR. Then you got the Campbells, you got Buck and BJ. That we buddied, and so I rode with BJ. Well, Jason wrote with Buck, and then it was entered twice, so we got to switch, runs and stuff. And so it was cool for me back then because I was the last one to make it. But it was cool in the fact that we were amateur rodeo and circuit rodeoing together, and we ended up all making it. And so you kind of had that as well with Luke and Kevin. That's kind of who you're sparring with from the IPRAs.
That's right. And that years ago, that was a huge subject of maybe it being a disadvantage coming from the East. Like, what's it like to make it to the NFR? And it was huge. I mean, it's something that you dream of, that to come out here and you have to relearn everything you're doing. The boxes are longer. The setups are different. I mean, you
what was different besides all the boxes and things like that? And when did you decide to come out west? And then what did you see the changes were? What were the adjustments you had to make?
I had a very lucky opportunity. Frankie McClear, they gave me an opportunity to come out here and rope with Frankie, and I think I come out here and roped at 20 or 30 pro rodeos, and I roped terrible first time being out this way, but I learned a lot about what I needed to work on, and but the fact of, swinging when you nod at that time, you got to sit still. And then,
because you was a gunslinger when you first came out here, you and Handsome.
I didn't know any better. And you see kids do it now. That's why it's so tough now, is they've got good at it, and they've turned these regular setups into deals that's gunslinging deals.
When you first came out here, was that who you were riding, was Handsome?
Yep. I rode Handsome for 8 years. He was
an amazing gray horse.
Such a soldier. He was tough. He was bronky. Man, the years you could have got out of him more if you would have took better care of him. I knew he was a bronc, so there was nights I'd saddle him, leave him tied up at the trailer. I still rodeoed on that horse for 8 years, only him. And it's amazing that how much he could take. But he could score and run. A lot of people, the days they remember of Handsome is the later on in his life at the NFR, and he knew to duck and he knew to make things happen. But that was one of the fastest horses that I've ever rode. He scored good. He run hard. He had lots of years in him. The way he was pretty tough mouth. He made a great rodeo horse. He didn't want to get on his butt a lot, but that's what made him so good. He ran for a long time. He wanted to go toward DeKalb on his own. The years that I reined him off trying to reach it's crazy that he even lasted that long.
So when you came from East, like I said, you talked about, I forget how many years it took you to make it when you first started coming out west.
Yes, sir.
What were those adjustments? You say you swing in the box. I know the boxes are different. Was the cattle different?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We're used to, roping mostly Corrientes. You get out here and you're roping Mexican steers with bigger heads, bigger frames. They were great steers. Stronger steers. I'd rodeoed with Michael Harris in 2002, and you could go to 100 rodeos that year. So we make it to 91 of them. And you think, well, if I can't make it in 91 rodeos, then I don't deserve to go. Well, I missed it by 2,000 that year, and I'd give anything if I'd have borrowed the little bit more money to make it to the 9 more. But then you can't realize how many rodeos that is. I mean, we were gone a lot. We were gone a lot of miles. It ended I think the season ended in October back then. Yep.
Cow Palace?
Yep, Cow Palace.
Yep.
Yep, that was the last one.
That was one of the first years you put in a full year.
Yes, sir.
And that was 2002?
Yes, sir. And then I started roping Michael Jones. I started roping him the next year.
2003?
2003, and I moved there and lived with him and his family.
And what horses did you have at the time then?
I had Handsome and a little horse called Joe. And
was that the little sorrel?
A little bitty sorrel, and super cowy, plenty fast. Perfect horse to, for your second string horse to put in when you didn't ride the other one.
And then, was that your first NFR?
That was my first NFR.
2003.
And Michael, he called me a couple years ago joking about this. His dad was, he said, I don't know if my dad was that, just hoped that we would do good, or if he was that smart to tell us that we were that good. Because I remember the very first night that we went and practiced, I drove all the way from Tennessee, excited to be there. As soon as I get there, they got it set up where we can go rope down the road. And buddy, I've never seen a set of steers like this. They got some horns and they're running. And we might have caught 8 of it as a team out of like 25 steers. And the whole way home, his dad told us how good we were going to be. You're going to go in the top 5 this year. And, he told us that enough that I must have started believing it. And we actually went in 5th that year. But, David Jones, he spent lots of time on me with the slick stick. He spent hours after hour with me working on my swing, a whole new level of watching the cow, watching his feet, how to handle them, reading your healer.
He was a breakdown guy, wasn't he?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
His analytics were pretty correct, too.
Yes.
With a lot of the things that he would discuss.
And I know, man, I thank him so much now, because you're looking back at the days that I've never even roped this way since then, but if I brought my swing up and it was tight, he'd stop the whole run. He would hold us up. If I started the corner in the wrong way and at the wrong time, he would stop the run. So, that was a new meaning of practice and perfect back then.
And so then how long did you and MJ rope together?
We roped for a couple years there. I'd made it with him in 2003, both of our first NFR. We both ended up making it in 2004 again. I roped with him for a little over half the year that year. And then I roped with Dugan, Kelly at the NFR in 2004.
And then you're still the same horses? Handsome?
Yep, still the same couple horses. At that moment, I believe that year, Cody and Stranger are both 5-year-olds. So I'd started hauling them a little bit, they had already been hauled a lot as 3-year-olds to some jackpots healing. And we'd sneak in there and had 1 or 2 on them. And I think that's what made them so solid at a young age. They'd been hauled a lot, been a lot of places. My dad flagged a lot at the time. They'd been to a lot of arenas, a lot of different places with low pressure runs.
Yeah.
But anyhow.
So then now we start moving on to where Cody and Stranger start becoming your lineup.
Yep.
They start, because I think in 2006, if I remembered right, didn't you sell Handsome?
I did. I sold Handsome, and it was Wade Wheatley had wanted him since the first time I come out here. He noticed him, and Handsome was 16. I'm at San Angelo. I didn't have a lot of money at the time. I was getting low of funds, and I drove the best steer in the pen. And I was so worried that Handsome was maybe going to step on me that I hit the barrier just right, and I throw it 2 coils past the steer, and he's got his ears pinned, and he's headed right to the steer. And I said to myself, if you're not going to trust him, then you need to sell him. So I called Wade Wheatley on the phone. He turned around. He had already left. He come back and picked him up, took him home, tried him, and bought him. And then Cody and Stranger were both 8-year-olds, and I started riding them at that time. And by June, I was just trying to turn most of my steers. I was roping Cole Bigby. By June, they were.
This is in 2005. I remembered right. Cole Bigby, right?
Yep.
Up with Cole Bigby in 2005. Cody was starting to get solid.
Yep, they both got pretty dang solid, and then they got to where you could go win on them. So,
And so I think you made. That's when I remembered. I think at Dallas. Were we?
That was 06 and made.
Was that 06?
That was 06 and made the NFR and rode Cody and. Yep.
And then what year was it? Was it 05? Where you
didn't make it in 05.
So that's what I was thinking of. So in 05, I remembered that was an odd year. It was a weird year because that was, I think, didn't you rope with who'd you rope with? You went coast to coast in 05.
Yeah,
that was my first NFR.
I roped with Dugan there. I roped with Dugan during the year. I ended up going at the end of the year roping with Boogie Ray.
Boogie.
Yep.
And you guys went from Raleigh, California up to somewhere in New York, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And
you won both of them, if I remembered right, or maybe won the one in New York, then went to California, and you only had to be in a certain placing. You did it, made the NFR.
No,
is that correct?
No, not in 05. I didn't. And then a lot of people from coast to coast, everyone knows Boogie Ray. Everybody. I've been in a truck stop in Arkansas before, and someone asked you what you do, and you say team rope, and they will say, "Do you know Boogie Ray?" Everyone knows Boogie Ray, and they know that he's made the NFR once. And I will be the first person to tell you he's supposed to have made it twice because he's at Raleigh, California. I had sent Handsome to New York. I sent my other horse to Raleigh.
Because he did the last two rodeos
of the year. Molly Powell tells me, "I don't think your horse feels good." Turtle's wife. And me at young age, I'm thinking that she's kind of being a barrel racer on me. I'm like, well, he's old. And he probably never feels good. And when I left the box and I'm headed to the steer, I realized 100% what she's talking about. He's not running. I think he was he doesn't feel good. And Boogie needs to be 7-2 to make the NFR or 7-4. And I chase him as far as I can. I'm not getting any closer. I think to myself, you better throw now. By the time I think that thought, I'm 2.5 calls away and I hit the cow in the back of the head. And I'm as sick as I can be. Boogie's washing his horse off, and I walk over to him, and I just dread telling him I'm sorry. And I go ahead and tell him, and I said, "Man, I'm so sorry, Boog. You had to be 7-2 to make the NFR." And he looks at me and he says 7-6. And that's what he came with. But anyhow, that was one of the biggest misses at the time of my life at that time for him.
And then when you get back, from what I remembered right, on paper, you had the finals made, right?
Yes.
And then when you got back, that was the controversy on the rodeo counts and all that stuff. And basically, I think New York got pulled from you.
Yes, sir. That's exactly right. Yep.
And that was because it happened a little bit last year.
Yes, sir.
And which was wild, just because, like, man, you'd think by now they kind of have a lot of that stuff lined out. Because I remember that was a big deal.
That was it was a big deal then, and then when you start dealing with it, you realize that that's been they've had some steer wrestlers in the same boat, some bull riders in the same boat, and it's just a hard deal for anyone to go through. I hate that those guys went through that.
Coaster.
I hate that they went through it.
By the time you get out, you're out.
And I mean, you can say this or that. The one thing that I will stand up for is for the Cowboy Zone is I hate that it gets turned into them being against each other.
Yeah.
I'm not against the PRCA. I'm not against the other ropers or anything. I just hate that it gets turned into
political. It almost goes political.
Yeah, that part of it.
Because what I thought was really cool was the bounce back from that year in 2005 to 2006.
Well, now that you bring that up, it's funny because, you read all those articles and since you're for years now about how long it takes to change. Well, the thing that was keeping me from making the NFR in 2005 was my catch percentage. I had made the NFR off of day monies most of the time and didn't realize that when I was high call back at a rodeo and you needed to just catch, I'd split his horns.
Kind of like Boogie said. 7-6.
7-6. That's what's hurting me. It was the steers that I needed to just catch that was setting me back. And
this is where Cody starts.
That's where he kicks in with me not even knowing it. No, it's coming. I see the video.
And for everyone to understand, Cody's the horse. This is when he was a 5-year-old the year before. Now, I remember right, he's a 6-year-old.
Well, no, he would have been. A little older than that. Yeah, I think he was 8 in 06.
Okay.
So.
This is when this horse started evolving into your herd, where you started seeing, in my opinion, Chad Masters starting to learn now how to make consecutive runs over and over and over again.
I watched the video that Speedy had put out for kids, and it's strictly right horn, left horn. And he's talking about opening up your head loop. He's talking about swinging to the right a little bit. So I have one outside horse during December. And we don't have, at those times, we don't have a rope and dummy that you drag. We don't have anything. I put a steer in the pen, and I would lope around the pen, and I'd swing to the steer would trot. When the steer would trot, I'd swing at the fence, and I'd lay the head rope on the cow. And when that cow got tired, I'd get another one. I would ride this guy's horse 3 or 4 hours a day, swinging at the fence, laying it on the horns, until I fixed the habit of turning my hand over early. That was my goal with that. So anyhow, I spend, all of November doing this, and then now it's NFR time, and now all of a sudden, and all this is a blessing, like you said, the fact that I didn't make it, and then this is the year that Jake cuts his thumb off. Corey Kuntz calls me. He can rope the last 5 rounds. He wants to know how much I've been roping. Wants to know if I've even been riding my horse. Can my horse even make it from Tennessee to Vegas before the next night? Which he couldn't.
Because there's a snowstorm, if I remember right.
Yeah, there's a snowstorm, and he can't. It's too far away. And his decision was between me, 16th, or Trevor, someone that was already there, which, lucky for him, Trevor was there. And Corey was so right. And about Trevor's already acclimated to the noise. He's already been there heading. He's already been there competing. And man, he gets right on Travis Trine's horse Walt, and they win the first day money. That was amazing what they pulled off. And I was sad because you're not sad because you're wanting to go prove anything. You're sad because you need the money. Like at that time, I need the chance at the money. But that let me finish out what I'd started about watching my head loop go on. And for the next year, I decided that I was going to go turn steers till I could get that mastered a little better. So,
and then you do. And then the next year you go to the NFR in 2006, rope with Al Bach on Cody. And did I remember right? Did you win the average?
We win the average. It came down to the last steer. If I win the round or third in the round or better, I can win the world. Al needs to stop the clock. And Al's so good of a trainer, coach, motivator. He can give you that look in the alley like when he nods his head, that means, hey, let's just go make our run. We're not pressing tonight. And it can let you down in a way that you just relax and go do your job. But we get down to the last steer. And at this time, I've decided that I'm just a guy that can make the finals. Like, I'm probably never going to be a world champion. I got what it takes to maybe get there, but it's hard for me to get there. It's hard. It's a struggle to get there. And I end up missing the steer, trying to go too fast. It was a little low-headed. I think I waved it off. And at that moment, I didn't breathe. It was 3 loops then. I remember right before I throw, I knew not to throw when the cow's circling you. Line the cow out good. As I'm throwing, I realize my loop is way too small, and it catches. And I turn him, and as Al throws, the cow cuts in behind me, and he still leans out, and he gets him, and I don't think he's going to get dallied. He gets dallied. I stretch the steer out, and I'm not breathing. I would not turn the dally loose. I don't even realize the run's over. But he ends up winning the world, and Matt Sherwood beats me by $800. And I leave there like, man, if I would try harder and I would believe a little bit better and think right, man, I was $800 away. If you'll set yourself right, you could win. You could do this. But it's just funny how,
think of the mind shift from the year before, just want to make it. And then all of a sudden just in 365 days later, then you're like, I had a chance to win the world.
I'm $800 away from being a world champion.
Not only am I a guy that can make the NFR, I had a chance with this recipe of what I did all year to be a world champion.
That's right.
That's a huge mind shift from 365 days.
Yes. And then that like you said, that's a great way to put it with the recipe. You just move forward with that recipe for the next year.
Because didn't you row with Big Al in 2007?
I did. I rode with Big Al, and then I rode with Brett Buckus.
What you rode, it didn't matter. I remember you turned steer after steer. If you need to win the round, you won the round. If you need to win the average, you won the average. Like you roped, like it was an impressive year. I remember it to this day.
It was a good year. I had 3 of the same horses that I'd been riding. 3 of the best horses. You know, I had Cody, Stranger, and Lucky. I'd already knew them. I've been riding them for years.
Because Stranger started coming into the play now.
Yeah, Stranger. You know, Cody gets a lot of the credit because you rode him at the BFIs, you rode him at the NFRs.
Because you had horses scoring like what Trevor's did in the futurity back before anyone had horses scoring looking up through the reins.
Yeah,
like you had that.
And then
with Stranger,
yeah, exactly. With Stranger, that's just how he was. He was dash for cash.
I remember riding him, and I don't know how many barriers are broke because he stood there like he was asleep. Not thinking he would leave, and he would fire off your hand.
Yep. And I mean, what a blessing to ride that horse for 8 years. But you talking about hard to get off of him and learn how to ride other horses again and try to win. That was a struggle in its own later on in my career. But you know, that year, I remember missing. I kept up with. I missed 17 steers, and I think I broke out 9 times that year. So that was the best year of odds I've ever had. I had finished second that year, roping with Al, 07 and 06. Walt Woodard won second. 1 year later, he must have had the same mindset. It switched. I win the world in 07, and so did Walt, and we're still roping with the same partners. So it was you know, everybody asked
what changed in 07? When you're in the 10th round, what did you have to do this time in 07 to win the world?
I think we ended up winning second in average that year. We were 5'8", and I think Al either slipped a leg or got a leg. We were 5'8" plus 5 in the 10th round, and that secured us a good spot in the average.
So what did you have to do? What did you know going in the 10th round this time? Because like you say, you look at 05 to make the NFR 7-6. Wasn't able to do it. Then in 06 to win the world, made the mistake, ended up winning second in the world. Now we're the next year in the 10th round. Like say you're watching the evolution from one year to the next. Like what did you know you had to do in round 10?
I knew we just needed to stop the clock for me.
And then how did that go?
Well, that's exact. But for whatever reason, Trevor walked by me before the team roping started. He says, "Hey, you've been out roping everyone all year. Don't quit now." It was like it relieved me. It's like, hey, why would I change anything besides use my playlist or my playbook of what I do? This is where I swing. This is where I go. And but I dang sure made sure I rode better. I made sure I rode better on the last one. Because
to me, that's what I think is so cool is when, all right, 7-6 and 05 to make the finals. You learn how to adjust. Next year, you make the finals. Well, then kind of the similar thing happens in the 10th round in 06. Well, then a similar thing happens again in 07. Now, because that's what a lot of people don't realize, those misses, usually there's a lot of growth. There's a lot of breakdown. Like, if this happens again, this is what I'm going to do. And there's sleepless nights to where you figure out, when I get in this position again, I am not dropping the ball. I am not dropping. And then in 07, to win the world, learn how to not drop those balls. That's pretty cool.
Well, that's exactly right. And then they asked you how it feels. And it's not that it feels amazing the fact that you didn't drop the ball. That part. That proves to you that you can follow through with it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because what a lot of people don't realize is as hard as misses are to learn how to deal with, that the amount of times that I've watched guys like Michael Jordan or like you or like Trevor, that when those balls are dropped, you better watch out because that ball don't get dropped again. You know, there's so much learning in those situations to where you watch a lot of guys that either breaks them or they become great from it. And that was one of the things I always remembered from your career was if it happened, it doesn't happen again. Like you figure out how to make it happen. And that was what was cool about 07. I remember being there and it was fun to watch. It was real fun to watch.
Heck yeah.
And then 08 was cool because now, if I remember right, Luke makes his first finals in 08.
Yep. That's, I'd started, me and Luke, we rented this apartment in Morgan Mill in 07. And, man, I knew him from IPRA days. I didn't realize the drive he had. That's where the roping started. We were fortunate enough to we'd get up in the mornings, at 7, whatever, we would head out and start catching horses. We hardly talked any. I'd eat a bowl of cereal. He'd head out. One of us, we had 3 pens. We had 3 outside pens. I had my horses in one. He had his horses in one other one, and then the other one, you didn't want to be in that pen. That was the head horses. That was the colts. And one of us would fill up grain buckets, and the other one would put halters on and send them down the road, and we'd tie them up, saddle whatever you felt like saddling for the day, and we'd turn the other ones loose for the day. And we would leave by 7:30, 8 o'clock, and we would drive to Al's house, and we'd turn him steers till he didn't want to heel no more. And we'd go to Patrick's, and we'd turn him steers till he didn't want no more. And if it was still daylight, Rodeo Dave Lewis lived in Stephenville, and he'd let us come by there, and we'd fix whatever we tore up on the horses that day. So we team roped, and you don't realize how much. I mean, there was very little bit. At that time, I had my good horses. He had his good horses. We team roped. We didn't, they were pretty solid, so we didn't have to work or spend a lot of time on them. It was competition runs over and over, and you're sparring with somebody every day. And at the time, you don't know how important that is till later on.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
When you're such good friends with someone and the other one's driving the other one, it's amazing how much tread you do when you're trying to just figure it out in yourself.
So,
and another thing too is having eyes. There's probably no one who knows your swing better than probably Luke,
right?
And vice versa. When you guys watch that many runs together and you're good friends wanting to see each other win, the growth I seen that year in Luke was amazing, because Luke makes his first finals and roped awesome.
Oh yeah,
and that was the start of it.
Yeah, him and Jade placing 7 out of 10 rounds at his first NFR.
Mm-hmm. Now, what was it the year when you guys were traveling and Luke was being a little bitch, and he told you, like, how many steers did he miss from Monty Joe? And he's like, man, remember that? And he's like, I wish you just like,
oh man, we're at Deadwood, and it's before he wrote. It's before he wrote. I don't know why.
Now, when I called him little bitch, that was his words, not mine.
Okay.
Because no one alive would call him a little bitch.
Either way. Yeah. But we're in the parking lot before the rodeo, and he's talking about this and talking about that, and he's sitting there, and I'm playing with this.
He told me how many steers he had missed in a row or something. He was whining about it, if I remembered right.
Okay. And there's a flag there with a little piece of wood that, it's a marker where you park, and it's a stick, and I'm playing with this stick. I'm just listening to him, and he says, you ought to just hit me with that stick. And I mean, I don't know why it lit me up so much, but he turns around to walk off. Well, I catch him right in the fat of his back, and it whelped it, and it stung him. He couldn't do nothing. I mean, he's head back, chest up, walking off, and he wins that night. He wins, and I'm like, well, there you go. You were right. You needed whelped, and it broke the stick. It broke the stick across his back. So we go a year later at same rodeo. He's roping Martin, and we're sitting right before we go in the box. And he says, remember last year when you hit me with that stick and I won? You ought to do that again, but you ain't got no stick. Buddy, he don't even get turned around. Tail of the rope across his back.
You grab your own tail of your rope.
I grab my own tail of my rope. I get him again, and he's mad, but he's up. So you can't really do anything about it. So I think the where he bites his lip when he gets in the box and he gets angry. I think he realized that I got to get mad where I can win.
Hey, he learned how to use that as fuel, didn't he?
Yeah, that's his Cesar de la Cruz look.
Yeah.
He does. He gets fired up like that.
I remember he told me on the way here, he said, man, I remember that stick that went across my back. He was telling me how many rodeos he drove to where he couldn't put his back against the seat driving because it hurt so bad. Oh, that was funny.
The funniest part about him and his back is we had went to Houston one year and it was 3 of us, and we have a plug-in, and the breaker keeps breaking. So I go change the breaker a couple times, and Luke and Big Luke are scared to death of dogs. They don't like any kind of dog that they don't know. I don't know if they've in South Carolina, I don't know what kind of dogs are there, but they're scared of dogs. So there's this pit bull that's got a muzzle on him, and that's right by where you hit the breaker at Houston, and I keep asking this lady why she has a muzzle on her dog, and she's like, "Oh, he's just the biggest friendly pet ever. It just, he's pit bull, and I don't want to scare anyone. It's safer with his, a muzzle on, and no one will question me." So I'm playing with him, and he's wagging his tail, and I'm hitting him, and he's jumping up on me, and I'm fighting with him and wrestling him, and he is a big old friendly dog, but he's got a muzzle on. So I guess by the third time the breaker goes, it's not my turn anymore. Well, Luke's walking down through their white T-shirt, walking down the back, and he said out of the corner of his eye comes this dog out of the back of a trailer on a leash with no muzzle, and he turns to run when he gets in the chain link fence, and he's going to climb the chain link fence, but the dog is locked on his back, bit through, and he's hung on him, and I can hear him screaming bloody murder from the trailer, and we get out there. He's bleeding. He's on the back of someone's truck now in the bed of it. It is priceless. I loved it. I'm laughing. I'm crying because I knew what had happened why this dog had did this.
What's funny is Big Luke's definitely scared of dogs.
Yes, sir.
And it's so weird because they can truly sense it. We have a dog at home that's never bit anybody, and he's bit Big Luke before. And it's like, well, that doesn't make no sense. He's never bit anybody before, and he bit Big Luke. And I knew Big Luke was scared of dogs, and yeah, it's so they can sense it.
They must sense it. Yep.
It's got it in Luke too. Then, oh, that was funny. Well, then what? Then you also won the world again. Was it 2012?
Yep. Just
and that was a Clay Cooper. That was back when you roped with Clay.
Oh man, what a year to to be able to get to go rope with Clay. And the first 3 days of the trip, the radio had never been turned on. We hadn't talked about anything. It took me one night. He finally asked me, leaving Gunnison, if I would drive a little bit. So I'm driving his truck, and I'm asking him. I didn't really pay attention when we come into the mountains. He'd been driving the whole time since we'd been gone, whether he was using his brakes a lot or his engine brake and kind of redlining it. And so I would redline it and use the engine brake, and he'd lay his seat back and he'd be sleeping, and then I'd be like, man, I've been using it. It's revving this motor up. I better change out of this gear. So I'd change gears in his truck and be tapping my brakes every now and then, and he would pop up out of his seat, put his seatbelt on, and he'd talk to me. And it took me about 30 minutes to realize that he wanted me to use the engine. He was not going to tell you how to drive a truck, how to ride your horse, how to rope, how to enter, anything. If he wasn't happy about your entering, he never let you know that. He would ask you what our plan was. And then the next day he would ask you what your plan was. And then finally when you're like, well, that plan didn't work out, we had to change it. Well, we must have coincidentally changed it the way he wanted. He would never ask you again. So there was no way he was going to give you a way of how you were supposed to do anything.
He was a thinker. He was one of them you had to kind of, he was a fascinating guy because just like you said, I remember the amount of conversations we would have, and him and Trevor were kind of similar, and you would almost catch what he had to say maybe a week later, a month later, and you're like, oh, that's what he meant. He'd almost like send clues out there a little bit, but there was never anything where he actually kind of gave you the answer.
Oh yeah, the one he told me that the most successful he had ever been is when him and Jake run 100 a day. So we were going to run 100 a day, and man, I'm having trouble turning him 100 one day. I'm not catching any, and it's rough on me that day. So I go to the barn, and I'm gonna hide from him and not show my butt in front of him, and I take a broom and I beat the haystack with it. And I told him that I'd went to change a bridle, and I get back and he goes, huh, I thought that was the same bridle you were riding earlier. And I'm like, oh yeah. And he just smiles, but he don't say nothing. And he stops me about 5 runs later, and he tells me a story about him and his cousin going to the baseball field when he was little, and how they gave you a piece of paper and you put your name on it. And during the break, you made a paper airplane and you threw it out there, and whoever's paper plane landed by the, where they pitch, they won the prize. And he said everybody's rearing back and throwing it hard. And he said his cousin's got the smallest little plane he'd ever seen. and he just barely pulls it back, and he barely lets it flow out of his hand. And he said it just soars through there, and it flies forever. And he said it landed right out there, right where it needed to be, and with no effort at all. And he left it at that. And about an hour later, I realized he meant I was throwing too hard. Just like he said, it was a clue.
Yeah. His mind is, you can tell how it's successful for him. I mean, there was nobody, in my opinion, on the heel side that you'd seen that was just such a mentally strong competitor. Let it happen, and remember the mega matches?
Oh, man.
The 30 for 30, end up going 30 for 30. I mean, you watch him through his whole career, that just his reactions were always so sharp, and he was ahead of so many things, and he was such an Ironman competitor.
When I was 11, I mentioned that my dad and mom took me to Clay O'Brien Cooper School. It was in Arkansas at Bobby Hurley's ranch. And you always wonder when you do a school now if the kids are listening, and you're trying to give your speech and talk to them and give them a heads up of what's going on, and you're looking through the crowd to see if any of them's listening, and some of them's looking off, and some of them's already playing with the rope, and you wonder if they're listening. There's kids listening, because Bobby Hurley, during his speech, he said that he was his first year roping with Cleo, and the first time he got to his house, he was going to just see how many he could catch. And he said after 100, he got tired of turning them, so they gave up because he'd roped all them by 2 feet. And I just think that's unheard of at that age, that someone could rope 100 in a row. And he's done that for years.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, sir.
And then you won the world that year in 12 when you roped with him, and then he was just a tick short.
Yes,
correct?
Sir. Yep.
But man, how iconic was that, to be able to have pictures on your wall? You've won a world title with Al Bach healing for you. You won a title with Clay Cooper healing for you. Those were our idols growing up. Like, that had to be, that's so surreal.
I remember we would go to the U.S. finals a week early to watch them in the open roping. And I couldn't believe that we were even in the same building or the same driveway as just their horse. I mean, I can't believe seeing Ike in person.
Yeah.
I can't even, and then to grow up and be able to get to rope with him. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's.
Do you remember that time when we drove, I think it was in 2012, when we drove from San Antonio to San Angelo, back from San Angelo, back to San Antonio? Remember, we were up in the perfs at San Antonio, and then the morning slacks at San Angelo, and it was you and me and Clay, Kevin Daniel, and Kristen. That was probably one of the funniest trips that I think I had ever been on. That was the fastest. I don't know how many hours it took to get there, but it was the fastest. And I remember in slack the next morning at San Angelo, I had never felt like I did 1,000 sit-ups without doing 1,000 sit-ups from the amount of times that we laughed. That was probably some of the funniest stuff, is watching you and Kevin talk about growing up in Tennessee and rodeo, and Clay. I'd never seen him smirk and shake his head and laugh and kind of giggle.
Well, Kevin's wife is an angel, and she's just as pretty as she is. She's just as laid back, and she's letting me and Kevin go at each other pretty much, and she's not getting jealous. She's not worried about what we're talking about, this girlfriend or that girlfriend. She's not. She's just right there along, reminding us of stories that she had heard. She's being a part of it, and it was a super, super fun night. Yes, sir.
I remember Kevin said something, and then you're like, "Oh yeah, you think that's funny?" And then you told the story about one, and Kristen goes, "Well, I never heard about that one."
Oh yeah,
and you go, "That was real funny, huh, Kevin?" Threw him right under the bus.
Yeah, just go ahead and I don't know how his next morning was, but
it was so funny. I remember the one where Kevin was dating one, and then he left because I think he was maybe dating another one and went out with the other one. And that one that he was dating, you loved. I remember you told me you loved her.
Yeah. To take up for me, I've been in love with her since I was 12. So, yeah, it does look bad. I will take up for at that time, the girls that rodeo, there's not a ton of them. You're gonna, There is now, but back then in the 90s, there's not a ton of them rodeoing. There's not so you're probably going to date the same girls. So it wasn't like we were mad at each other for having, that wasn't weird then. So that's how I'm trying to justify it for sure.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I know it was your girlfriend, but I loved her since she was 12. You didn't like her then. So, I mean, that to recap on that, that's how I'm defending myself.
Yeah.
I understand the code about you shouldn't date your buddy's girlfriends, but that was different.
What I laughed about that was so dang funny was that, I don't know, what was it? Is it 20 years later or something? It was a long time between the time that it happened when we were telling this story. It was a long time. And what I remembered was Kevin went out with this other girl, and you knew it. And this girl that you loved since you were 12, she was there wanting to know where Kevin was. And you were like, well,
I mean, she's my friend too. You can't lie to her. I mean, what's bad is I think what got so weird about it is I try to tell on him, not really telling on him, but I just want to spend some time with her. So anyhow, that works for just a little bit, but then he still gets her back. So we don't leave it alone there. Now I'm going to go back to the one that he did take care of, like trying to visit with her now. So
what was so funny about that was the fact that night Kevin never knew how the other one found out until like 20 years later or whatever it was. And he was like, so that's how she found out. He goes, you looked at him and goes, yeah, that was a really funny story, huh?
That's probably how that, I had something to do with both them.
I tell you what, that was the funniest. That was probably the funnest trip. I'd never seen anybody. You guys just go at each other, and it was so much fun. And then Kristen was just laughing the whole time.
Oh yeah, you couldn't. She was such a trooper about it.
And then after all these stories for however many hours, I remember when Clay walked out of the truck, Clay Cooper, he goes, "I just think there was a lot of stories tonight that probably should have been left in the closet."
They're probably questioning their friendship right now.
That was awesome. That was some fun times. So what? With the horse fraternities kind of taking off where they're at, man, you have an amazing place. You've done so many great things in the rodeo arena. What does it look like now rodeoing for you? You still after it, still going after it as fraternities? Kind of, where do you feel like where we're at now, where things are headed? Because you can still hang with them, and you still rope good. Your horses all still look really good. What is next year looking like? Who you roping with? Do you kind of know yet?
Man, as far as the fraternity side of it, last week was, very eye opening of my goals and realistic goals. I do got to kind of clean up my herd a little bit of what I was focusing on, maybe trying to show next year. I think that's something I'd love to get into. I mean, with, everything Jay and Triggers and all these guys are doing. I mean, the money's out there. They're trying, it's something that really interests me. I
think you do such a good job of it. Man, like I say, your horse is hung with them. I think just like we talked earlier, what you've done in your rodeo career, I think what you learn off of this year is they're going to be even stronger next year and the year, and as it keeps going. And I think what a lot of people continuously ask, especially like on Facebook and social media, is a lot of guys ask where the horse market is, especially on the head side, and a lot of the guys that we've had on this podcast, they're training these horses for the fraternities, and these are upper level horses. And so the market for the upper level horses is kind of the sky's the limit. It's kind of like the really good ones, really shiny ones, the ones that win, the guys with money, they're going to buy them. So it's real heavy at the top. And you have those as well, but you also one of the guys too, I think too, that you also keep enough easy horses around for a lot of the masses, because that one horse that may not be able to run as much as the top level fraternity horses, that horse has got a good market for where he can go. A lot of the horses that maybe don't have the eye appeal and things like that, but they still score and they still work good. Where's kind of the market at for, the masses, more or less?
Right. And that's something that everyone's looking for. I know that's obvious, but the horses that I have that I don't think are going to be that caliber, or something that I'm looking forward to selling here, in the next 2 or 3 months, that is something that someone can take from the 13 down and go enter on it and we've already had it a couple years here, so we know all its holes. We know what we got. But that horse, they're hard to find. That's what everyone's looking for. Not many people's trying to sell them because they're getting to go rope for that big money. A lot of times. So that's the horse that I am glad that I have some of them now, because I my goal is to go show them. I realize they're not that caliber, but I think there's something that I should be able to put 4 or 5 horses for people to come try at one place. And you're not talking about the $100,000 mark. I mean, you're probably talking around 50, either lower 50s or under that, and that sounds outrageous. That sounds outrageous but a $12,000 horse that me and you are used to growing up or trying, which was $7,500 back then, that horse brings 25 or 30 now. And I'm not trying to act. It just makes me embarrassed to tell people, like, you feel like you're big dog and them, or like, hey, we don't have anything here cheaper than that. But it's just where the market's at. It's not. It's hard to tell people because you're so used to the fact that when you're looking at your horse that you want to sell for $20,000 or $25,000, the fact that for so long this was a $12,000 horse. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to make yourself price it at 20, but you've already paid more than 12 for it.
Yeah.
So I mean, to make any money on it or to move forward or cover its feed and its shoeing, it needs to bring the 20 or 25.
And I've noticed where some of the sales are starting to kind of peak out. I think I talked to Ken Bray a little bit this morning, and, talked about, I think the sugar high that a lot of the sales have had after COVID, are starting to kind of level off, which is a good thing for the market, because it needs to balance back out where people, can afford things, we're hoping that obviously the country is going to go in the same direction as well. And, to where I've had a lot of people ask questions on what some of those horses that, that they need, what is it how much money do they need to save up to try to find those kind of horses? And so that was a lot of really good information to be able to kind of, for a lot of people, know how much they kind of need to be able to put in a piggy bank to be able to find something to go in on.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's easy when you're caught up in the rodeo. You go get whatever horse you need, whatever one you can win on. He pays himself off. We get to rope for a living all the time, but it's hard for the normal person that works all week. He's got to have a horse that he can get along with when he gets to rope on the weekends, but he can't go invest, $70,000 in a horse. That's it. They get to last him a long time to get to rope for that money back.
What is the market now for a top level rodeo horse? Like what has been some of the numbers that you've seen that to be able to go be real competitive? What's that top horse? What's been kind of somewhat in the guesstimation of a ballpark of what it takes for a horse that can make the NFR? Yeah,
that's hard. The guys that have that horse, they're trying to make it themselves. We've been seeing them go for 200, 100, 250, 150, 100. But we bought a horse this year for $65,000 that you can ride anywhere. I mean, I got lucky and found him, and he's the type of horse that you can depend on. But he's 14 years old. I mean, that's kind of but I feel confident in riding that horse anywhere. Because
it seems like at that level, the price tag gets real high because unless that guy's broke and he's done,
right?
The horse is on sale, but he ain't for sale. And so, like, what I mean is, like, if guys have that horse, they know they have his horse, like, I'll sell him, but I don't need to. Right. So to where you kind of have the leverage. So then that way the price tag is going to cost a lot because I know what I can probably win on this horse. And so it seems like that's where they stay pretty high as opposed to, like, back in the old days, it seemed like a lot of guys were broke and they needed to sell because they were broke. And so then that's where the other person, the buyer, had the leverage to where, like, you could get them to where you could afford them. Doesn't seem like very many people sell when they have a good one. It seems like they don't sell them for what they know they could sell them for. They're able to price them to where they know they can. Now I can go ahead and let go of them for that.
That's right. And that's where I've been with some of my older horses. You he's not quite where he was, but someone else could take him and ride him a different way, and he would last them a couple more years. But if I can't give him away, I can use him here and there and still win that on him. So
what about next year? I know you're going to go next winter. Thinking about going next year. Still kind of what's 2025 rodeo look like?
I'm really hoping to focus on my horses and my horse sales, and maybe some of the horse shows like we talked about. I'm going to enter this winter with Corey Petska. I'm excited about that because, man, he ropes awesome. And I got lucky and bought the paint horse this summer.
I like that horse.
I love that horse. I've learned a lot from him.
That horse can smoke.
He can run.
I seen that at Houston last year when you were roping at Houston, and holy smokes.
He's very dependable. I rode him pretty much everywhere I went this year. He's tough. And, it excites me to ride him. Like, I probably hadn't been on one like that wants to run like that since maybe Cody or Wart. He's just all running. He's all in. And so we're going to try that out.
So go this winter and kind of see where everything's at.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Still, because the one thing about you is like you love to rope so much that I don't ever really see like to where it's. But what I love though is where a lot of the fraternities are going, where guys that still love to rope. Even if a guy decided to slow down, there's still some good avenues now where a guy can stay successful, and that's where like for you, I think with the horses and you're really good at clinics. You're a chameleon with the rope. Like, you studied the rope so much. I remember some of the guys that I would always talk to, like when I would get in a bind, would be like, if my horsemanship was south, you and Trevor. If my angles, if I needed to work on angles, I thought Luke Brown's angles on being able to get to a steer was always really solid from where he got to the box to set up that throwing lane. And to swing, you and Speedy was always someone I would talk to on the swing because you guys understood the rotation of the hand and where it needs to break over and and like we talked about with Luke, you'd seen me rope so much too, where you could almost tell, like, I remember when I would get in, because throughout the year, there's a spell if you're rodeoing that you go through a spot to where usually you're anticipating a step a little bit early or whatever it is that, I remember Cheyenne and sometimes Kennewick. That was always, sometimes a guy could hit those little spells where you're getting them slumps, and you have been always someone to where if I wasn't catching, you could say one little thing, and you're like, oh yeah, and then you'd be back to catching.
Yeah, it's just stuff that you already know, that you already knew. It's just a reminder, never hurts ever, and you never know who has the right idea of a reminder.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I would love to do the schools. I think that would be.
Well, you have a great place for it. This is an unbelievably nice place.
Oh, thank you.
Probably one of the nicest indoors I've ever seen. It's set up correctly. Just even where the wind comes in and how you got it blocked in certain spots, the return lane, the simplicity of how everything works to get them up. Man, this is a great place.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we do enjoy it here.
Be proud of too, I think, when you think of this, when you pull in here. Because I remember me and Garrett, we've pulled in here before and we're like, isn't that wild? Look at what Chad Rowe has done with a rope.
Yeah, that is that's like you said, that's all you ever dreamed of. That's all I ever knew, and that's all you ever. It was like I was too dumb 20 years ago to realize that I didn't rope good. Like just all I wanted. I thought that when you'd miss steer after steer, you don't. If I miss that many now, it really bothers me. But then you don't. You're like, oh, I just threw a bad loop. You don't think that was a dumb throw. When you're young, you think, I'm going to throw there again, but I think I can catch him this time. Yep.
Yeah, when a guy's young, that eye of the tiger, it's amazing the dumb choices you make that you learn from, but it's also enough to where you ain't scared.
Well, it worked out good for me. I wish I would have went to college. I still wish I would have went to college. I tell every kid to go, and that's something that I think that your mind don't develop till you're 23, 24, 26 is the year that I learned more than anything. But the route that I chose, it worked out. And definitely, I don't know what made me mess with the buying and selling horses and the riding the outside horses, but that's helped me get the spot that I have,
Well, it's done good for you because I think, like I said, every horse I watched that you've done a good job with, you've learned something off Cody that you're able to apply the next one, and And I think that's where the evolution of the horses, when you're riding so many, you're always the next one gets better. But the good thing that I've also noticed about you is that you have always been one of the more fair guys that I've ever met with the horses. If the horse didn't work out, bring him on back. Like you were almost so honest that like, I tell you what, this horse did not do very good yesterday when I picked his feet up to clean his feet out. Like you were so honest on every little thing to where that's where you've done such a good job. You weren't selling things out of necessity. You made sure everything was correct, and your integrity that you've had and the way you've always carried yourself, you're always one of everyone's favorites every time at the roping. No matter what's going on, you're always there. You're always able to talk. You're always there present. You've done such a good job with your reputation and your roping and how you present yourself also out of the arena that, like I said, to be successful no matter what is going to be so natural for you that it's pretty cool. And I think another thing I love too that you've built this place and you got old Bob here with you.
Yeah,
we're up here in his apartment right now, and old Bob, he kind of mans the ship while you're gone, and how cool is that to have Bob here with you a lot and have your dad and.
Oh man, he's a goer. If you don't know him, he's a goer. He probably, I would say you would go ahead and give him the label of ADD at 80. But he can go strong. He's
the toughest man I've ever met.
He's very tough. He's had 11 concussions. He still goes all day, and he loves it just as much as he ever has. But the kids here,
when I see grit. And I see where your grit come from, and then you're around Bob, and you can see it. There's no backup. You never had it, and you can see where a lot of it you got it from too, because Bob's got zero backup.
Yeah,
all in.
He's all in. Yes, sir.
I love it. One of the things I think that has kept him moving so much too is that not backup, no backup mentality, huh?
Yeah, I think that's just those old timers. That's how they were raised, and that's just a different generation.
It was fun too. I talked to Luke on the way here too, and he was talking about, he's like, it would be a great podcast. He goes, we got to get Big Luke and Bob on the podcast together. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, that would be so funny. So much fun, them two together.
Speaking of Big Luke, and I told this story one other time on Lucia's show, but they asked how close I was to Big Luke. And I said, well, that's tricky because I've known Big Luke as long as I've known Little Luke. And then, the first year he makes the NFR, and like you said, we'd roped a lot that year, and we'd spent a lot of time together that year. And we're at the NFR, and he wins the first whatever go round he wins. It's his first day money, and we're all out, and it's after he'd got his buckle and he'd done his deal, and we're out there, and Big Luke's chugging on his Pendleton bottle, and he's not putting it down, and he's still chugging it, and he gets done, and what I didn't know, he comes up to tell me thanks. And I don't know if he meant to give me a hug or a kiss on the cheek, but he ends up locked on kissing me on the lips. And he won't turn me loose, and I can't peel him off of me. And I can't get away from him, but that's how close I am. That's how close I am to Big Luke. So anyhow, and if you don't know him, the first time I ever met him, he set me up as good as anyone. Why I was so dumb not to see the resemblance, because they looked identical.
Yep.
He asked me if I know Luke Brown. I said, yeah, I know Luke. And he goes, you like him? I said, oh, yeah, I'm good buddies with Luke. I like him a lot. He goes, huh, that's weird. I was sitting there listening to him, and I didn't fall for it. So he goes, you ain't never had no problems with him. We're in a jackpot in South Carolina. I've never seen this man, and he's asking me if I know Luke Brown. And I said, no, I ain't had no problems with him. I know, but he goes, if you set him up though, you could see a way that he would do you wrong. I was like, oh, not really. I don't. And then finally asked some kind of question that it was turned around. And I said, I don't know, maybe. And he looks at me and he says, that'll be the last time you ever talk bad about my boy. And he walks off, and I don't see him for 7 years.
Oh, my goodness.
7 years. I didn't see him for 7 years after he told me that. I'd never seen him again until then. And then, but that was so funny that he was set me up so good.
Oh, my God. There's nobody that is more life than that guy.
That's right. He's out to have fun. Yep. He cannot make him be serious. Yep. That's not in him.
And them two together, your dad and Big Luke, it is it's like watching Grumpy Old Men. Remember that movie, Grumpy Old Men? How much they went back and forth. It was so funny.
They've been,
funny.
And then Carson, which is Big Luke's grandson, is spitting image of Big Luke.
Oh,
so Bob's been going over there because I was so tight I'd turned our DirecTV off for the summer, and he couldn't watch ball games. So the ball games started coming back on. So he's going to Big Luke's to watch ball games, and they have been going at each other, them three.
Oh, God.
It's been hilarious.
That's awesome. Well, man, I know you're exhausted. It was a long week of roping. Man, I appreciate you for coming on the podcast. Great story, great person, great family. Man, I appreciate everything you've done for us, everything you've done for me. Man, I excited to see where your horses go because I think, man, this is going to be a fun with the futurities. Man, I thought they looked so good, and I think it's going to be exciting to see where they go from here too. But appreciate you coming on, man, and good luck next year, buddy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, and we appreciate all the listeners.
All right, buddy. See you.